nature of our reality is akin to that of the breath. Expansion and retraction, held in balance by 2 points opposite in nature, full and empty. These points are extremes, and just as holding one's breath at full capacity pangs at the lungs and eventually forces release, so too does an empty set of lungs beg for more. Therefore, it must be so that there can be too much and there can be too little. Receiving air is not the purpose of the lungs. Neither is it the release of air that satisfies the constant need to breathe. The purpose of breathing is the maintenance of the equilibrium between the positive pole, filled lungs, and the negative pole, empty lungs. It may also be noted that the negative brings about the positive through its need for more, and the positive brings about the negative through its forced release of excess. Now, all I have done is describe a very simple process we all understand in a somewhat mysterious way. What no one understands is why everything that is acts exactly in this way. It's so innate that all of reality, the entire universe, can be compared to the process of breathing. It manifests in every level: existence and empty space, the rise and fall of nations, the growth and decay of all life, and lastly, the proton and the electron. Everything has its poles. There is that which is full, the proton, and there is that which is negative, the electron. This dance between full and empty creates a wave pattern, an endless flow unbroken by time and self-correcting when cheated. But why does this wave persist? There must be a midpoint created by the two opposite poles, a flat line running in between the tops and bottoms of this wave, so perfectly balanced it is simultaneously full and empty. It is just right. The ever-fleeting and impossible to maintain perfect moment. For, in our lives at least, it is a moment, because time will bring about the following opposite. Balance is only ever achieved in momentum towards one of the poles. All that is considered good resides in this balanced point. From the simple example of temperate weather to the more complex example of the balance of power between the citizens of a country and the country itself. All that is bad, but not evil. Evil is something else entirely. All that is bad is due to being too positive or too negative. In temperature, too negative and you're too cold. Too positive and you're too hot. In politics, an overly positive government, or government that is too big, becomes corrupt. A government that is overly negative or too small cannot prevent its citizens from growing disproportionately in power and becoming corrupt themselves. This is actually the argument between communism and capitalism. It is an argument of poles, as all arguments are, and only solved in balance, in harmony. So, we see that our reality is held up by an endless war between opposites. Should one side defeat the other, destruction will ensue. Therefore, if one cannot exist without the other, I pose the question, do either even exist? What is the proton without the electron? What is light without darkness? What is man without woman? None of these things could exist without their counterpart. And if they cannot exist by themselves, then there must be something greater, something more real, existing behind these pillars of polarity. something that is simultaneously full and empty. We get brief glimpses of it when the forces are balanced. It is this midpoint between the poles where all that is good resides. This is what is real, and it is through the expansion and retraction of itself that the poles are created. The poles cannot exist without each other because they are one and the same. They are part of that infinite balance. They only differ in degree, but they are part of one whole. Hot and cold do not exist. Temperature exists. Light and darkness do not exist. Visibility exists. These are but simple examples of polarity systems. Thousands of them exist in our reality. And what resides at the center of all of these? What is perfectly balanced between all polarities? It is the metaphor of God. I say metaphor because God only exists as a balanced whole of everything, of all that is. If there is a point in the universe where all scales are balanced, this will be where God can be seen, but only as a small reflection. For God is not a bearded man in the sky, or something that can be seen in the universe. God is the universe itself, and therefore cannot be seen in full within itself. Now lastly, I'm sure everyone is wondering one thing. If everything is perfect within the center of God, or if the universe taken as a whole is that perfect balance, all things equal, why does God expand and retract into imperfect aspects of himself in the first place? It is because God breathes also. Why does he breathe? Because God is also growing, testing the limits of the extremes, increasing the distance between the poles in order to further the glory and power of the centered balance, in order to further himself. We do the same thing, do we not? For we are a microcosm of the macrocosm. The universe, or God, is fractal. Everything is one, set in an endless cycle of separation and unification, through the mechanism of expansion and retraction, through the mechanism of breath